Today we got news that may seem small at first and very well probably is more small than it is a huge set of news, and that's that the Bulls almost signed EuroLeague star Sylvain Francisco this offseason, but they were waiting on a trade to be completed that unfortunately, due to the timeline and free agency being held up by LeBron James, they could not make the trade in time to create a spot for Sylvain Francisco to come over to the Chicago Bulls. And when you consider the fact that the Bulls have an open roster spot, the question is, what was that trade? We're going to talk a little bit about that, plus why Josh Giddey's 2026-27 season is not going to be about his scoring, and we're going to dive into the mailbag. All that and more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. So, Sylvain Francisco, a veteran EuroLeague guard who's about 6'2", and who's had a really big explosion over the last 3 years. We'll talk about that. Was recently interviewed, and he talked about that he almost made the jump to the NBA, and the Chicago Bulls were a team that was extremely close in signing him, saying this: yes, in the NBA there were openings. At least 5 or 6 teams, many on guaranteed 2-year contracts, had the opportunity with the Chicago Bulls, but the trade they wanted to make before stalled because in the NBA, everyone was waiting for LeBron's decision. However, my deadline was until July 20th, and LeBron signed 4 days later. So that's where all the teams really started to transfer players, make more trades. It's a shame. I was a little angry, let's say, but it's something I don't have control over. In the end, it can be a blessing in disguise, and I stay in Europe. So the question now is, what was that mystery trade, right? Like, first, let's talk about who Sylvain Francisco is, because I think we need to frame that in the correct and proper way first, to then talk about what that trade could be. So when you look at Sylvain Francisco as a 6'2" guard, right, who's scoring in regards to that, right? And, when you look at it, he's a guy that doesn't have tremendous upside. He's 28 years old. So you're not like signing him to be like some future juggernaut or really part of your long-term development, right? He's going to turn 29 October 10th, which is right around the start of the season. But when you look at this kid and what he's done here, in 2023-24, right, he averaged 10.2 points per game and 3.2 assists, shooting 35% from three-point range. Then in 24-25, he averaged 14.6 points, 4.5 assists, and 34% shooting from three. Then in 25-26, he averaged 16.7 points, 6.4 assists, and 39.9% from the three-point range, right? And then when you look at it, like, he also shot 42% overall. That's really good. Also, he made 2.7 threes per game, and he also averaged 2.8 rebounds and a steal per game. That is a legitimate progression. When you look at going from 10.46 to 16.7 over a 3-year stretch, and also 3.2 assists to 6.4 assists, doubling your assists, it shows that he didn't just become a better scorer, he became a better guard. He became a better league guard. So the thing that I would say that this shows that Bryson Graham, was trying to be aggressive about getting more scoring, but also still looking at somebody who can still facilitate, assist, and things like that. When you look at Sylvain Francisco, this is a guy that can create offense. There's no doubt about it. And that may be what Bryson Graham liked the most about Francisco, is his ability to create offense. Even though a little bit undersized guard, and I know many people are going to say, well, don't we have an undersized guard in Rob Dillingham that can do that? And I already know some of you Rob Dillingham truthers are going to be like, well, Rob can do all that and more. Well, hopefully Rob proves it, because right now Rob ain't proved nothing other than he's an excellent bitch warmer and can get up some shots inefficiently. But with that said, right, this is a guy that would bring some scoring punch, some three-point shooting, and still the ability to facilitate for players off the bench like Jalen Smith, Zach Collins, Dailyn Swain, Leonard Miller, right? Those type of guys, right? And so because he will be able to give the Chicago Bulls something that's proven, it's something that I can understand. Also, he's an excellent pick and roll creator as well. that may be the thing that he's best at doing overall. Not even the three-point shooting, is the creation in the pick and roll. And like I said, when you talk about Modest, when you talk about Nick Claxton, when you talk about Caleb Wilson, when you talk about Jalen Smith, when you talk about Leonard Miller, these are all guys that you want in pick and roll actions. And so because of that, because he's able to consistently identify the strong pick and roll as a guard, he changes the pace, he does all those type of things. So you look at like a Francisco, Sylvain Francisco and Caleb Wilson, like that type of high screen actions that he can roll, that would be excellent in regards to that one. So I think that like I get why Bryson Graham liked this kid and got him there. And as his shooting progressed as a player as well, that, you know, even being undersized, he's shown an ability to shoot 40% from three basically on 6.8 attempts per game. That's not just standing in the corner. That's him shooting in volume, coming off screens, coming off those type of things. It would have been really good. He understands how to collapse the defense, all those type of things, and that's good, right? He's also somebody that can score. I say this about every team needs somebody who can score outside the framework of the offense, meaning when everything breaks down or you can't get your pick and roll actions going or the defense packing in the paint, you can get somebody who can score outside of that framework, and Sylvain Francisco is somebody who could have done it. It makes sense that 5 or 6 NBA teams was looking at this guy seriously, right? And he just became a better point guard, a much more mature player over that time period as well, which you're there. Now, he's not going to be part of the core. He would not have been part of the core, and that's there. So you're bringing him in as a overseas veteran with that can provide some scoring, pacing, passing, all that to you. And you're probably looking at him at another player that can help develop your players. And you're also giving him his NBA opportunity that he's probably going to make more money than what he ever made before, right? So now the thing comes down to, what was the mystery trade? What was the mystery trade that the Chicago Bulls were trying to make before they could sign Sylvain Francisco and bring him over here? Now, we don't know this. There's been no credible report on what that trade can be. So I want to be clear here. Me saying what that trade can be is 120% speculation here. This is speculation, right? But when you look at it, I think you have to look at, like, could it have been Rob Dillingham? That would have made some sense, right? If you could have got rid of Rob Dillingham, was there teams around that were interested in Rob Dillingham that they could have moved him off of, and then you could have replaced him with an actual scoring guard that plays like still small but actually has some scoring upside and stuff like that, right? But I do think this. Just the fact that the Bulls did not need to make a trade to sign a player. They didn't need it. They had 14 contracts, one open roster spot, and a $9.4 million room exception. That's important for a couple of reasons. You already had the seat available. So to me, that says that there's something in this that they wanted to create a space and an opportunity for him, because somebody who may be on this roster getting minutes could be in the way, right? And you could just want to consolidate your guard room as well. You have Josh Giddey, you have Trey Jones, you have Rob Dillingham, right? You may want to consolidate some of that. And also look at it like Trey, Rob Dillingham, and Sylvain Francisco are all kind of smaller in stature guards, right? And so there's part of it. Guards need touches, but, you know, Sylvain Francisco is somebody that, as I just said, can create for others. So would it have been Trey Jones? Was it Rob Dillingham, right? Now, Trey is somebody that we did hear has value around the league, especially as a veteran. And when you think about if teams were waiting on the LeBron move, were teams waiting to make a move for a veteran point guard that can play some defense and then they can bring into their team? Was there a team that was willing to, you know, look at Rob Dillingham and those type of things? Like, that's what you're asking. Or was it more of an asset play? Were you moving Isaac Okoro or Jalen Smith in a move to gain an asset back and create another roster spot in that way? Were you getting some future draft capital back? It just says to me that Bryson Graham is still trying to make moves. And so when you pair this with like what we've heard about Ben Mathurin and other players, like it could add more validity to that. He missed out on Sylvain Francisco, but it's clear he wanted to add a scorer. So because of that, you know, that could be another guy that they start taking a look at. So, you know, I just say that the information stacking up here makes it interesting. Now, it didn't happen, so it is what it is. But Sylvain Francisco really does point towards a type of guard that we need on this team. He could also have been a really good complement to Josh Giddey as far as the backup there. He could have played some with Josh Giddey as well, much like he does with Trey Jones. Now, Sylvain isn't the defender that Trey Jones is, so I'm not going to act like there's that. But if you're going after a 28-year-old EuroLeague guard that had a breakout season, to me, that is a win move. That's not just a development move. That again, continues to show that this Bulls team, say what people will, they aren't coming into the season planning on tanking. They're coming into the season planning on developing, playing the right way, and trying to win a bunch of basketball games. Now, let's just be clear. Sylvain Francisco, 6'1", 6'2". We've seen on smaller guards. Playing in EuroLeague isn't the same as playing in the NBA. NBA guards are bigger, faster, and stronger, and more athletic than what you play consistently in EuroLeague. That's just going to be there, right? And so, that's just happens, right? And it is what it is. So, again, I'm not saying that this would have been the move to save everything, but I do think that this is a very interesting move because it shows that Bryson Graham realizes the lack of shooting, the lack of scoring, and the creation that we need, and try to find an outside of the box way to go out there and get it. So I think when you just look at it and say it's not really missing out on Sylvain Francisco, because we really don't know what it would be as an NBA player, but it does say something about Bryson Graham still believing that this backcourt needed something. And we'll see if he still tries to find that as the course of the season goes on. But let me know what you guys think. Now, hearing about that, I've laid out about who Sylvain Francisco is as a player. I haven't edited this video clearly because I'm recording it. I'll try to find some highlights of Sylvain Francisco to kind of play over the top of this so you can get a look. EuroLeague gets very particular about their highlights, so I'll try to find some of them so you guys can kind of figure out who he is as a player. But, it's just interesting to watch out for, and we'll see what happens. But talking about Josh Giddey, right, and the Bulls trying to find another scoring guard. We've gotten voicemails. I can't remember if it was Unc Vaughn or somebody else that talked about Giddey like averaging 20 points or something like that, or needing to. Josh Giddey, to me, is a player that right now, to me, coming into this season, it's not about the scoring for Josh Giddey. Josh Giddey could average 17, 8, and 9. Again, he can do that. Or he can be a player that averages more 14, 8, and 10. 14, 10, and 10, right? I think on better efficiency. The name of the game for Josh Giddey, I think, this upcoming season isn't about scoring workload or scoring much more volume. It's about efficiency. I'd rather see, even if it means scoring a couple of points less, I'd much rather see Josh Giddey be a way more efficient player while also raising the ceiling of players offensively with his creation and things like that than being a player that averages 18, 20 points per game. Now, I want to be clear. Do I think that Josh Giddey can average close to 18, 19 points per game? Absolutely. There's a world in which I don't know how efficient it would be, but it absolutely is possible. To me, I think that Josh Giddey actually becomes more valuable by doing less scoring wise. And I know that a lot of people are going to agree with that, and that's perfectly fine. But what I mean is that I'm not saying he can be a non-factor offensively. He still has to hit his threes at a really good rate, the ones that he does take to keep the defense honest. And we still are going to need Josh Giddey to average double-digit points. But I think when you look in this, the thing that we look at, it's not about less. We need him to do more playmaking, right? More lead guard activity, more creation, less turnovers, and maybe less forced scoring. Because for a long part, for what the Bulls have done, Josh Giddey's needed to force to be the scorer because we haven't had much of shit else with all the injuries that we've had, right? So now I think that it's that Josh Giddey doing more playmaking, less forced scoring, more of helping Modest and Caleb Wilson attack, right? More of the half-court creation, becoming a better half-court creator as well. And I do think that if Josh Giddey becomes a better conductor of this offense, it's much more valuable than scoring. And I know like the casuals are going to want to see the points because it's the easy thing to look at and the easy tangible thing. But I think that good players produce numbers. But those numbers don't always mean that it's about their scoring. Good creators understand that the way that you can create and make the game easier on other player can be how you really elevate a team. So I think what it comes down to is Josh Giddey may not need 7, 15, 16 shots per game to be effective. It's about efficiency, creation, and those type of things. And if he does that, I think that Josh Giddey's going to be off for a really good season this year, and we'll see. Now, there could be also a side of this where Josh Giddey does need to take on more scoring. Let's say Modest doesn't take the scoring lead. Caleb Wilson does find scoring a little bit more rough in the NBA than even what he did in college and in summer league. If those things happen, then yeah, Josh Giddey's going to probably have to take on more of a scoring load. But the place that we're in right now is that luckily we're in a place that he hopefully can choose which one he's going to, or we as the roster will choose which version of Josh Giddey that we have to get and that we're going to need the most. Because again, I think that Josh Giddey can very well affect this team hugely. And that doesn't mean that he's going to have to score a lot to get it done. That's just my personal opinion. Like I said, I know people are going to want the points and people may be saying, Haize, you're tripping on this one. I'm perfectly fine with that. Let's get into these voicemails though, man. This first one that we got, this one's from Vikram.
Yo, what's up, Haize? Vikram. Yeah, I saw your Locked On video and about the Denver Nuggets whole second apron thing. And the thing with Christian Braun actually got me like pretty interested because he's still young. He did get a bad contract from the Nuggets, but the contract was worth it like 2 years ago, right? And of course, I don't see that value like I don't trust it. You know, like it could happen, he could return back to that kind of value, but I just don't trust it. But still a valuable shooting guard. Like he is a good fit next to Josh Giddey, so I'm really interested in getting him if it means we could get that Cavs pick. You know, and if we're gonna get that Cavs pick, then we probably have to give up some pretty good assets. And I feel like an expiring deal of Dailyn Swain is one that should be extremely attractive to them. That and like either Isaac Okoro or Trey Jones, depending on what they deem, whatever the value of the trade would make it go through. I'm sure they would start with Okoro and then maybe move up to Trey Jones, something like that. But that would be really good for Nuggets financial flexibility. Be good for us getting in like a valuable Cavs pick in I don't even remember, 2032 or something. Like that's really good, right? And say we don't do it like that, right? What if we somehow offloaded P. Will's deal for Christian Braun just to help them get out of the second apron? Is that something you think the Nuggets could be a little interested in? Maybe we would have to throw in a second, but to throw in a second to get off Christian Braun's contract, get off P. Will's contract, like, would that be something you're interested in? For me, I don't know how interested I am to just offload P. Will's contract for a bigger contract. Player's better, I get that, but like, I don't know, 30 mil is still 30 mil. It's a lot of money, so I feel like the only way I would be super interested in the deal is if we get that Cavs pick, but yeah, just let me know what you think about that one.
The reason why I would be out on Christian Braun is the contract. That's it. Like if you were talking about Christian Braun and we were like, it's a year before, like maybe he was a restricted free agent this year and he gets paid this upcoming summer, then yeah, because even with the injury last year, he's shown enough flashes to where it's like that could be somebody. But I think for me personally, and it's not just knock anything that you brought up here, but for me personally, I'd rather overpay on a Bryce Sensabaugh restricted free agency next summer than make a lopsided trade and have the Christian Braun contract right now. That's just my personal opinion. I think Bryce Sensabaugh has way more upside as a two-way player. I like his fit as a scorer. I think he doesn't need the ball as much to be effective. And I'd much rather, if we're going to overpay somebody anyway, because Christian Braun's contract does look like an overpay right now, I'd rather put a $30 million contract offer on restricted free agent Bryce Sensabaugh next offseason. That's just my personal opinion. So that's where I sit with it. All right, let's get on this next voicemail, man. This one's from Reggie.
Hey, Haize. This is Reginald calling, man. I was just listening to you and Pat talking about possibly helping out the Nuggets by adding a player or two. And the guys you mentioned were either Christian Braun, Aaron Gordon, or Cam Thomas. Not Thomas, but Johnson. Personally, I think Braun would be a better fit, but I think the Nuggets would want a protected first round pick, and I wouldn't give them that. I'd rather take Cam Thomas. That's Thomas Johnson, I keep thinking. But Johnson, great 3-point shooter. He can stretch the floor. He can play 3 and 4, as you already know. But I think the Bulls only have a little over $9 million left of their exceptions, so even if you combine his that $9 million exception with Okoro, it still leaves you a couple of million short. So if I'm the Bulls, if I'm Graham, I'm talking to them about Johnson and maybe Strother, who's also a good 3-point shooter, for Dailyn Swain and Okoro. Bulls can absorb both guys and still have a couple of million left over to sign a veteran, to a vet minimum. You get a backup shooting guard for, a backup shooting guard for Powell, and you get put in an interesting situation where you can move Modest to the 4, you can move Johnson to the 3. You got Caleb Williams, come off the bench. I know a lot of Bulls fans don't want to hear you say that, but I think if you have Modest and Johnson and Caleb Williams fight for a starting position, I think Johnson and Modest win at the start of the year. And I think the Bulls trade Johnson at the deadline for, a guy and multiple second-round picks, a young guy. But, that's just my opinion. So what do you think of adding guys like Cam Johnson and Strother to add extra three-point shooting, still keep a space open and a couple of million left for Coral and Smith, two guys who probably won't be on the team next year? Thanks for hearing me out.
You can, this is the thing, and I'm going to mess because these are two of my most loyal listeners. I'm messing with them. Reggie and Vikram, the moment any trade talk comes up, they're both going to leave a voicemail. I don't think I've heard from Reggie in a week. These guys are both so trade thirsty, right? Shout out to them, and I mean that with love. They're both so trade thirsty. Reginald used to always, like the first year of me doing the show, every time Reggie called, he was, we could trade this guy and get this, and we could trade this and get that. These guys are so trade thirsty. But nonetheless, same thing, right? I'll say this. I'm not trading Dailyn Smith for Cam Johnson. I think that Dailyn Smith, and I know that they're both expiring players, all that type of stuff. I'm not trading Dailyn Smith for Cam Johnson just to add Julian Strother to this team. I'd much rather just sign, like I say, if Cam Whitmore gets waived, or even give Ochai Agbaji a chance, or just develop Dailyn Swain. I'm not trading Dailyn Smith for Cam Johnson, personally. I think Jalen has shown himself to be a better complementary player. I think I like his weak side defense and rim protection a little bit better on this team, and we know he has chemistry with Modest Buzelis and Josh Giddey already. So that's where I stand on that one. So again, not a bad voicemail. I'm not saying that, but I'm good on the Jalen and Jalen for Cam Johnson and Julian Strother. Even if you moving off Isaac Okoro, I'm good on that personally. That's my personal opinion. All right, let's get into this last voicemail, man. This one's from Shay.
Yo, what's up, Haize? This is Shay. Look here, man. I've been hearing a lot of people say this season, and I'm not necessarily talking about you, but I've been hearing a lot of people say this season they should just be focusing on, Modest and Caleb Wilson's development. I'm here to tell everybody on this one. It should matter if the whole team's developing. Because I look at it like this. What good is their development if the team doesn't develop in a sense of a winning culture? Not necessarily a championship, not necessarily winning the playoffs, but also making, but making the playoffs, taking that next step other than just a play-in or just looking to see if the two guys get better. Because at the end of the day, two guys just don't make the whole team. I look at it like this. Yes, we're a rebuilding team, but we do have some pieces who have been in winning situations, such as Norman Powell, such as, Nick Claxton, and I feel like a lot of people, mainly the mainstream media, is just focused on these two players are just flat out Caleb Wilson just because he's the number 4 overall pick. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, he is the future, but I believe that us as a whole, we shouldn't just settle for, hey, Caleb's doing well. Let's just hope he develops in due time. I believe that, and I believe Thiago Splitter is going to do this heavily because he wouldn't be a head coach. But I believe we should focus on the whole entire team getting better because I feel like everybody, including a lot of our fans, we just want to see what Caleb and Modest does early on and not even thinking about the team as a whole team aspect. And I believe that, we're just setting low standards for ourselves. But that's just my opinion. And I feel like we just need to set like a reasonable standard. Anyway, tell me what you think. Peace.
Another person that I'm going to mess with, because Shay was like the 5th subscriber ever on this channel. Every time Shay says, I'm here to tell y'all something, he gets everything wrong. He misses the point. Shay, nobody, by saying the Bulls should be focused on the development of Caleb and Modest, it doesn't mean that you're narrow-sided and you don't develop anybody else, guess what? You still are going to play 10 to 11 players on this roster, which means there's development minutes to go around. Nobody, and I would say, well, there's always some weird person. Nobody says, oh, but even when they're saying they should focus on modest, it just means focusing. It means that their development does more to raise the Bulls' ceiling than anybody else. It doesn't mean that you're not going to play your Leonard Millers and try to develop him. It doesn't mean that you're not going to give Rob Dillingham, Dailyn Swain, these other guys an opportunity to develop either. That's not what that means. And you know that, Shay. Shay said the other two people be so trade thirsty. Shay is so voicemail thirsty. Shay need a hug. He be so voicemail thirsty. He be leaving voicemails on shit that he know don't mean that, but the dude just want to talk. You're still going to develop other players, even if players are the focus, right? Even if you, like, as much the same way you can have a focal point of your offense, it doesn't mean other players aren't going to get shots. Come on, Shay. I shouldn't have to explain this one to you, big dog. That's going to do it for today's episode, dog. Listen, Vikram, Reggie, and Shay are some of the most loyal people. I'm going to mess with them. We're going to get back to having fun here. The thing that I started doing too much, and I hold myself accountable, is I stopped messing with people because people started taking it as, well, Haize is being an asshole. And yeah, sometimes I am, but I'm doing it in love and in friendship with people who know that I'm joking with them. That's all that is. Some of y'all need some help, man. But nonetheless, thank you guys for tuning in, man. Make sure you guys are following us. Leave your comments on everything down below. Let me know what you guys think about Sylvian and everything down below. Make sure you guys follow us at Bull Central Pod on every social media platform. You send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. And that's thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks